Hi everyone and welcome. My name's Geoff Nicholson and welcome to the #10 presentation about Shit Happens, which actually is focusing on planning and a perfect timing. This time of year, we're all looking to improve on the last year's results. We're all looking at setting goals and thinking about what we could do differently. We're possibly coming at the back end of Christmas. We have maybe spent more than we wanted to, eaten and drunk more than we wanted to, and feel sluggish or we're not as fit as we want to do. So what generally happens is we do this mass push forward. We think about what it is that we're wanting to achieve and we go for it. We go to the gym every single day at the crack of dawn before work, and we only eat leaves and stuff that isn't necessarily a normal type of food that's very appetizing for you because you are super focused on wanting to achieve your goals. And the reality is that overwhelm kicks in, the reality of I cannot sustain this for this amount of time. And generally by the second, third week, if we're pushing it, we have already gone back into our old habits. The idea of this presentation is to help you look at all the different areas of your planning and give you some strategies, some tips, some tools to help you maximize your results in 2026. So the first question generally I ask people, and it doesn't matter whether it's an international presentation or whether it's a national presentation, but the question I always ask is, who wants to be successful? And based on the fact that you're watching this presentation, I'm going to assume that you would like to be successful. The key thing here is to understand that there is a disconnect. And I must add, for my work, for the work that I do, successful means happy and fulfilled. Whatever goals you want to achieve, the success that you would get by achieving them would make you happier and more fulfilled. But there is a disconnect between those who would like to be successful and those who actually do the work. And traditionally, whenever I ask this question, we're looking at over 95% of people put their hand up who want to be successful. But then when we start asking about who has a plan, who looks at those types of things, who has ever done a plan, we dramatically shoot down to probably about 4%, maybe 5% of the room have actually got anything written down or have even thought about anything to achieve the level of success or to achieve their goals. So what we want to do is we want to challenge that. You need to understand that if you're wanting to achieve a result, then you actually have to do the work. Quite often it starts with that disconnect of going, well, what goals do I need to achieve? Well, I actually think it goes further than that. And the reason why it goes further is we have to understand what success means to us as an individual. So I think part of the problem is that social media has poisoned us or trained us to believe that many of us want to achieve success in our heads, but it is a disconnect from what the outside world says. So, if you look at Instagram at any one point, it says that this is what you should be doing. It should be the car, it should be the house, it should be the holidays, it should be the perfect family size or whatever it may be. And actually, if you have a different belief, if you are someone who doesn't believe that, and often I say in the presentations, if everyone's saying that you should have a 6-bedroom mansion in Florida, but actually your dream is to have a small bothy in Scotland and have 20 dogs, there is immediately going to be an internal conflict. And that internal conflict will pull you away from believing that you are wrong because of what the outside influence says. And what we also have to understand is that there are these internal voices that are constantly trying to sabotage our progress into the future. And we'll go into that when we start talking about mindset traps. But let's think about definition of success. What is your definition of success? Now, I personally I've been doing this for 22 years. I do like many people do. When I started, I read all the self-development books. My mentor was a #1 success coach in the States. And there was all this thing saying, to understand what success means, it should be almost like pages and pages of information. But I actually think it should be simpler than that. It should be something that's really rememberable, and it should be something that ultimately may mean nothing to everyone else, but it is the driving force that moves you towards the decisions, the goals, the conversations, the habits, all of those sort of things. So I believe that you should be able to describe success, your personal version of success, in 3 words. Now, for me personally, mine is fun, freedom, and flexibility. For many of you listening to that, it means nothing. But to me, it means everything. And all the conversations, the decisions, the goals, the habits, everything that I strive for and plan for and look for into the future are ultimately driving me towards that pinnacle, which is my definition of success. And one of the first challenges I want to give to you is, what is your definition of success? If you could have 3 words to describe what your version of success is, what would it be? And it doesn't have to be the same as anyone else's. It's what's personable to you. Now, some of you may already have an inkling of what that is. For some of you, you may have never even thought about it. And the best way to do that, well, at least I find, is thinking about what it is that you want to do. So whether you're talking about purpose or whether you're talking about serving others or whatever it may be, think about that word and then think about what it instills in you. What is the story that continues to talk about that? Because your definition of success is the thing that is going to fuel you when everything else is going wrong. We all have, whether it is a COVID type thing that flies towards us, whether it is a recession, whether it is a business doesn't work, whether it is that you go and change your career, they change, but your definition of success should never change. And that should help you navigate the challenges of whether 2026 brings you or whether other years bring you. But once you understand those words, the best way to do it is to simply search what that word means. So for me, the fun, freedom, and flexibility allows me to navigate my life and my choices to be able to deliver that. So that's the first challenge I want to give you, is when you are looking for that. Because when you don't understand what you are trying to achieve, when you don't have a target to hit in a bigger scale, then actually what the default is mediocrity or dissatisfying. And you're not satisfied with the life you have. You believe there is more that you can give. You believe that there is more that you can achieve. But if you don't have a plan or something to navigate through that, what you end up being at the end of the year or halfway through the year is dissatisfied with the results. And that can lead to many other things as well. So my first challenge to you is understanding what success means. The second thing that I believe is really important, especially when we're looking at creating a plan for the business, for your career, for your personal life, and for yourself, is to understand what has come before. And quite often there's a huge amount of people that kind of want to forget about the year that's just had or the years up to this point and go, okay, what is my focus for the upcoming 12 months? And the challenge with that is we're dismissing all the lessons that we can learn from the past. And although I don't believe that you should live life in a rearview mirror, what I do believe is you have to understand what has happened in order for you to achieve what you want. And, review and reflection are an important part of that. Now, there's 2 challenges to this. Number one, what if you can't remember? Well, you might not remember everything, but there will be key things that have happened in your life over the last 12 months that they will be locked in. Whether it's good or bad, they will be locked in. The important thing is it also highlights the importance of things like journaling to help you sort of process once you've gone through challenging times, but in order to help you process the things that you need to work on in the upcoming months and years. So the important thing is to understand the wins. So what has worked? What things did you do, whether it is in your personal life, your career, or things that you did working on yourself? What is it that worked? Now, these are valuable lessons. They shouldn't be dismissed. They shouldn't be ignored. They should be nurtured and developed, because if they worked, then what we want to do is we want to repeat the work that we are doing on them. We don't want to dismiss them. But quite often, the biggest lessons come from our failures or the things that didn't work. There is not a single person that is listening and watching this that has ever learned from everything that has gone right. But quite often what we want to do when something hasn't worked, we want to dismiss it, ignore it, and run away from it. But actually what we should do is stop, embrace, and go, okay, that didn't work. If I was going to do it again, what would I do differently? And then what we need to do is we need to document that, because if we're not documenting it, then we very, very quickly will forget. So where are we losing energy? Now, there's different forms of energy. There's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual energy. And that is actually what fuels us to move forward. It's something that, where we dissipate, where we lose energy, is something that we need to work on in order that we don't lose energy from there again. It could be relationships that are toxic. It could be strategies that we just seem to keep repeating without using, dare I say it, common sense to go, that hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked over and over again, yet for some reason I keep on doing the same thing. So looking at that. And then the truth would be, once you've kind of like done almost like an autopsy on the year, it would be, what would I be happy with in repeating in 2025? And all of those things is what would I do differently? So we have to understand the past to help us move forward in the future. And that's just a general skill set to learn, but it becomes really important when we're looking at what is it that we're going to achieve in the next 12 months. Now, for those of you who have heard me talk, for those of you who have listened to my podcasts, one of the things that you will be aware of is a framework that I use called Sh8t. Now, this wasn't something that I have picked up from others, although there will be an element of unconscious learning and delving, but I actually came up with this strategy and understanding based on my own challenges. For many years, I suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome. Prior to that, I suffered from 2 cases of meningitis. And I was going through an extremely dark part of my life where I left the house to do something I'm glad I didn't end up doing. And it was in that moment I realized that the only way that I was going to change was if I did something about it. I couldn't rely on people around me. I couldn't rely on circumstance. What I had to do is I had to control what I needed to do. And what I started to talk about to myself was what is it that I could do to make my life exceptional? And I want you to think about that. What is it that you could do today or in 2026 that would help you create exceptional results? See, quite often we're looking at normal. And normal is a dangerous word. And the reason why normal is a dangerous word is our internal stories or our editing of our what we say to ourselves and what we think change how we see the world, which is one of the important things about documentation, because when you document something, when you document a challenge or when you document a way of thinking and it's recorded on a digital form or a notebook, it doesn't change. However, when you allow your brain to edit it to fit the story that you are feeling. So if you've had a bad series of events, if you're not exactly feeling chipper and upbeat, what will happen is the story will change to match that. You will start to edit information, not on purpose, it's an unconscious thing, but you will start to edit information to meet the story that you are telling yourself. I often tell people a story of when I was ill and I was bedbound and I couldn't move around. I wasn't doing much I was bedbound for a year and I was housebound for 4. What I used to do is I used to keep this chart on the back of my door, and the chart basically was titled, "How shit is my day out of 10?" Now, I look at it now and I laugh and I think, wow, okay, but what do you think the fact of how positive I am going to feel if when I am recording the data it is always negative? So what you've got to think about is how are you doing? Are you doing that? Let's just grab a drink of water. How are you actually doing that? So shift was this thing that I started to look at, and I started to realize that when I was working on myself, and selfishly, that's how all of this started in the love of self-development, was what do I need to do to get my life right, to get my family's life right. And I think here comes in also a really important thing is, you are the most important asset. There is no more important asset. We may have family, we may have loved ones, we have key people in our lives. But if we are not working at our optimum level, we are unable to help them function at their optimal level. And I learned that from the fact that I saw how much energy, time, and effort my wife and my 2 children, I was taking from them because they were so worried about me and focused on me. And what we need to be is what I call being positively selfish. We need to understand, and it comes from if you're sitting in an aeroplane and an oxygen mask comes down, you have to put it on yourself first in order to help the loved ones next to you. And we need to kind of like adopt, or it's a good thing to adopt that philosophy. It's not about being selfish. It's about being selfless I need to look after me in order to look after the people I care about most in the world. So part of that is to understand that. And that's where shifts came in, because I needed to work on me. And I started to understand that there was key areas that I needed to work on. And then when I started to coach and I started to work with others, it didn't matter whether I was working with a homemaker or working with a CEO. It didn't matter whereabouts in the world they were. What I started to understand is they would come with this problem that they believed the issue, but actually what it came from was 6 core areas. And SHIFT simply stands for self, health, income, family and friends, time, and support. So let's break that down a little bit. Self, our self-confidence and our self-esteem. These are the things that drive us, either how we feel about ourselves or how we feel about the external world. Our self-esteem is the thing that gives us the confidence to be able to go, yes, I can do that. I like who I am. I am happy with who I look like. There may be areas that I need to work on, but I am okay with that. I remember when I was too frightened to leave the house because I used to think that everyone used to laugh at me and was saying bad things about me. And naturally, my self-esteem was completely rock bottom. The self-confidence is about how do I deal with the exterior stuff. So, how are you dealing with conversations in developing a relationship? Do you believe that you are confident enough to go and have a sales call or go to a network meeting, which I know will be big with Mr. Stephen J. Innes and also Stephen Thomas? That that they are an important skill set to develop relationships, not only in business, but in our personal lives as well. Then we have our health. Well, there's many facets to our health. There's our physical health, our emotional health, our spiritual health. All of those things have this knock-on effect. And if we are not looking after it, you see, most people go, yeah, I'm going to look after my physical health. Why? It's the easiest. You can go to a gym, you can do some working out, you can go for a run, and you can see the work improving. Whether it is your body style changes, whether it is you get firmer, or you can run further or ride further. But it is the other things, our emotional, our spiritual, our mental health. They are the things that we don't really recognize are strengthening until we need them. And even then, it's a little bit of a shock. It becomes a natural process of being able to cope with them. But we need to work on them to help us develop into the rounded human beings we wanted to be. And just out of interest, that's what a plan should be, engulfing everything. It should be whole. It should be looking at your career, your business, your personal, yourself. Then we have income. There's many facets to income. There's debt, there's what's coming in, there's savings, there's all of those sort of things. And if we aren't paying attention and understanding the truth about what that is, whether it is that you get nervous about opening up your bank app because you're worried about what the figures are going to say, you need to get to learn to become more resilient at that, because knowledge is power. When you understand what that is, you then can make the right decisions to change that. And you can create a plan, whether it is to improve savings, reduce debt, or increase your income. Then we have friends, family, or let's be honest, the relationships in our lives. Now, these are key things. Now, the reality is that we can't choose our family, and not everyone gets on with our family, but we can choose our friends. And we want to make sure that within our plan is also that social connection. How often are we connecting with those people who we can open our hearts to and talk about things honestly? And that might not be family members. The majority of people believe that they can speak openly and honestly to friends without being necessarily judged, and they can by family members. Then we have time. Well, time has two parts. Now, time has the productivity part. How productive are you in that time that you set aside? Or are you just being busy for busy sake? And then there's free time. What are you doing to recharge that energy up? Because literally life is about energy. So whether it is that you're doing a hobby, whether it is that you're choosing time to go out with your family and enjoy nature, or just have some fun time with the kids and your partner, or whether it is that you are looking about how is it that I can be more focused during the time when I need to get my work done. Because the reality is if shit's not getting done, then the results are not getting achieved. And then what happens is the ramification of that is that you will start to doubt your progress, doubt yourself. It affects your self-esteem, your self-confidence. And then we've got support. Support is about that support structure that you have around you, whether it is someone like myself, a coach, or a support network like a trusted group of advisors, a group of friends. Please, as a caveat to that, be very careful about picking friends as your support group. The reason being is, as much as we don't want to think this, friends sometimes tell us what we want to hear, or what they think we want to hear, not necessarily what we need to hear. Surround yourself with people who are going to give you honest feedback. They're going to support you into being better if that's what you desire. Sometimes friends sabotage progress because they don't want to lose the person that they think is brilliant. And they worry that because of their insecurities and their issues, they worry that if all of a sudden you become more successful, happier, get a different group of friends and different group of social circles, all of a sudden that's going to change you and you are not going to feel the same way about them. So be aware of that bit as well. Because the other thing is with support, accountability is key. The reality is that over 90% of us cannot do the things we want to achieve in our plan if we leave it to our own devices. The reason being is one, many of you probably don't even have a plan and never have. Number two, the stories in your head, the self-talk that goes on will sabotage the route and it will take you down a different way. Three is you will automatically default to the path of least resistance. That means the path that you have always gone down. It is accountability that holds you accountable to keep on the path that you want to achieve because of the results you want, not because of the things that you have done in the past. It's a perfectly natural thing to do, and to achieve exceptional results in 2026, you have to do something different. You've got to completely look at the mindset bit of what is it that you want to achieve, because that's the only way you're going to change the results of whatever it may be. And it's not going to be, possibly everything. It'll be certain things. But that is the key thing. And what you have to also understand with shifts, they are intrinsically connected. If you are not feeling great about your health, it's going to have, about yourself or self-confidence, it has an effect on your mental and emotional health. It then could possibly affect how productive you are with time, or how you are with your friends and key relationships. It also affects possibly income. So everything has this interconnected link to it, which is why what we have to do is make sure that one, we don't overwhelm ourselves with having crazy amounts of goals. And two, what we understand is that it's system. Planning is a mindset muscle and it has to be trained. And if you haven't done it before, then you have to understand that this is something that you need to work on in order to develop the skills to achieve the results that you want. So early on, I talked about the way that we sabotage ourselves, and what I call mindset traps. And there are all sorts of different ones. And the most common ones are, let's think about this. Imposter syndrome. Well, who am I to do this? You shouldn't be doing this. That is the thing that's going to try and stop you in your tracks as soon as you say to yourself, this is what I want my financial target to be, or this is what I want my turnover to be, or I want to lose this much weight, or I want to get this fit, or I want to have this relationship. There is going to be potentially that voice in the head that feels very authoritative, very convincing, and it is going to be persistent in telling you this. And what part of the mindset development is about becoming harder and more resilient to telling the negative self-talk where it needs to go. Then we have perfectionism. Well, perfectionism is an interesting one as well, because it's not ready yet. And it never will be. If you're always pursuing that 100% perfection, it never will be 100%. Now, what sort of things can you imagine in your experience already that have stopped you from doing it because it's just not right yet? Procrastination is another one. This is a great one. We've got so many important things we need to do. There's so many things we want to achieve to make it either us happier or us more further towards our ultimate goal. And yet somehow it'll be okay tomorrow, or I would much prefer to sit there, even though I've got 4 projects on the go, I would much prefer to sit there and watch the latest episodes of Stranger Things or Lord of the Rings or whatever it may be before I even get to that. But there's also other things that we procrastinate on, and goal setting and planning is a really big one. Am I doing it wrong? The overwhelm of, well, I can't possibly achieve this because I need to get the perfect task management software, or maybe using a task management software is not the best way. Maybe it is that I've got to use a journal, or maybe I've got to use a wall planner. Now, the reality is that when it comes to task management software, they all almost do exactly the same. And what you've got to do is pick one. You may not want the simplest one, but what you want to do is you want to look at it and go, okay, what is the aim of this? The aim of it is to track my tasks, to be able to tick it off the list. Some of you may like gamification to go, oh yeah, okay, you've done it, which something like Trello may have or something. Some of you may want to go more professional looking. You may want to go like something like Asana or something like that. Or some of you may want to be more incorporate things where you can do email into it and everything else with something like ClickUp or Notion. Now, the reality is none of them matter which one. You could easily use Reminder on your platform or Google Tasks to do it. It doesn't matter. What you want to do is just get bloody started. The other thing is you don't even have to use a digital system. So I use something called the Productivity Planner. It's from a company called Intelligence Change. Absolutely brilliant, keeps me super focused. It allows me just to focus on the key things, planning my week and getting everything done. But I also carry around a notebook with me or an iPad where I just track notes and then move it across. What you have to understand is you have to understand by devising your own personal system. And there isn't a wrong one. The only time it's wrong is if you're not getting the results. Other than that, it's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter what Joe Blogs is doing down the road and they've got this fantastic thing that's linked to every single system and everything. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you just pick one thing and you get bloody started on it and you get it done. That's the key thing. And then it comes to overwhelm is another mindset trap. A perfect example of what I've just described. The mountain is too high. There's too much to do. There's too much to achieve. Well, the reality of this is what we need to do is we need to strip it back. We need to shrink it. Because for some of you who have never done planning, 12 months is too much. For some of you who have done 12 months and you're not achieving those results, 12 months is too much. My advice, based on my own experience, is break it down to 90 days, 3 months. Just look at, okay, what do I need to get done in the next 3 months? There's a great book called The 12-Week Year that really explains it. But what it ultimately does is it shrinks everything down. You don't look at things and go, well, I've got 12 months to achieve that. What you're looking at and going, okay, I have got 90 days to get this done. What is it that I need to do? And it's okay if the first 90 days is a phase that takes you to a result in 12 months' time. That's perfect. But again, all of these things need to feed your definition of success. They're all moving you ultimately to this bigger destination of what it is that you want to achieve and feel to get those things. Sorry if there's beeping in the background. Alexa can be a little bit of a pain in the arse sometimes. So that's a really important thing. But what you also understand is you will have default planning strategies that may be useful to you all the time, but most likely you're only useful some of the time. So let's see if any of these resonate with you. So the first one is, we could call this the planning zoo. Okay, so the first one is the bull. Well, the bull is head down, arse up, let's charge through. You charge in. The two problems with this: you're going to burn out by February because you're just maximizing this huge amount of energy output. But what you're also not doing is you're not paying attention to what's going on. You're not lifting your head up for oxygen to be able to go, am I actually making the right decisions? Is there a smarter way to achieve this? Because just because it's always been done this way does not mean it's always the right way or the best way to do it. So what you have to understand is you could be wasting a lot of time, energy, effort, and money into just pursuing this without stopping for a second and going, okay, what it is. Bulls are great for sprints. You know, going, okay, I want to get this done in the next week. Bang, let's get it off the list and done. Even a day, just get it knocked off the list and get it done. But a bull doesn't always look at the strategy of things. Sometimes they just plow through. Then we've got the sloth. So the sloth is planning paralysis. They never really get started. They are the type of people that will research the bejesus out of everything, but actually not make a decision on anything. So holiday is an example. You've got 400 brochures to tell you this, but what happens is you miss out on the best price because you've taken too long to make a decision. So what you need to think about is stopping for a second and taking stepping stones in order to help you achieve that. Then we have the eagle, great at vision. You are brilliant at looking at what it is that you want to achieve in the next 12 months. Your challenge is, what do I need to do tomorrow? Or what do I need to get done today? So brilliant if you're wanting to do the vision, and no doubt you probably have it written down, 6 or 7 pages of exactly what it is that you want to get done. It looks absolutely brilliant. You can see the result in 12 months' time. But all of a sudden, it goes to chaos when we are bringing it down to this week, the next 30 days, etc. Then we have the magpie. Magpie is probably one of my favorites. It's probably my most dominant strategy. We chase the shiny objects. The magpie is a very common in creatives, entrepreneur type minds, because there's so many things going on. People who work for themselves, you've probably got about 20 projects on the go, probably around about 80% complete. And what happens is when you get to about 80%, maybe 90%, that project then becomes bored, and your brain decides to come up with all of these new wonderful and interesting concepts, or it pulls you because you've been focusing on this so much you haven't done the marketing bit for something else. So because of that, the magpie strategy, you have to shrink that down, go, okay, I'm just working on 3 items or 2 items or 1 item at a time, depending on how your brain can work. Now, all of these are natural. All of these, there's nothing wrong with any of those strategies at all. In fact, they will be, some of you will recognize defaults, some of you may recognize as all of them in you. But what we have to understand is we have to look at which is the best strategy to do that. And one of the ways of doing that is to specifically look at a calendar and use them as strategic or tactical tasks. So for the eagle, that would be a strategic thing. Let's look at the future. Let's see what it is we need to do. But the tactical part of B is going, okay, we need to set up shiny things. There's shiny things that we want to achieve, but we want to get it off the list. So we shrink that down. We only want about 3 projects to go. And then what we want to do is we want to go hell for leather. I need the bull to come out, and I'm only going to work on this thing until phase 1 is off the list. So there's different strategies. But the only way, again, that you can monitor and know exactly where you are is data. It is understanding and getting some trackable thing that moves you forward, i.e. writing the damn thing down and not using your head space just to try and remember what's going on. The reason being is really simple. Your brain does not have the capacity to remember everything. Use the things that are around you, the task management software, the reminder on your phone, or a notebook simply just to write things down, or a whiteboard on your wall. Get it written down so you don't forget it, because if you're having a bit of a bad day, it's going to edit the information. There may be projects that you have completely forgotten about, some brilliant ideas and concepts that you knew could change the way your business would run, but it's been distracted by something else, by a narrative, by a story that is going on. And the stories are the things that we've got to really be careful of, that don't sidetrack us, sabotage us, and move us away from achieving the plans that we're wanting to achieve. So I must add, I know I've been talking for 30 minutes. Don't forget to ask questions in the chat bots, and we'll answer the comments as well. So the first thing is how do we deal with this overwhelm? So one of the things we have to understand is it is pointless having 350 things that you want to achieve this year. It's admirable. And I'm sure there is a huge amount of things, and there are going to be quick wins and there are going to be hard slogs. And they're definitely the goals that you set for this year. My advisement is only pick 3. The key thing is only pick 3. If you have, and remember, they want to stretch you. They don't want to be something within your comfort zone. They want to be things that you need to work at, develop skills, develop resources. They need to push you, because let's be honest, if it's easy, there's absolutely the reason why you aren't doing it is something different. But what you need to do is you need to stretch. You need to feel that you are growing. It needs to push you, kick you up the arse to go, okay, if you're wanting to achieve that, go and get it. But only pick 3. Now, whether you want to go, I want to pick 1 from personal, 1 from my career stroke business, or 1 from in self, that's fine. But also make sure it's rounded. So what an awful lot of people do, and whether it's a plan or whether it's the calendar, they only put the things down for work. They'll put the phone calls down, the telephone calls and those sort of things, but they don't put down the important things. So then you don't put down self-time or reading time or do some meditation or whatever it may be, listen to music, family time or whatever. You've got to use that calendar as the whole thing. You've got to use the plan as the whole thing. And then what you're able to do is go, okay, the first thing, shrink it down. If you're feeling overwhelmed by going, holy crap, what am I going to achieve in the next 12 months? Break it down to 3 months. Have the ultimate goal, what you would like to achieve in the next 12 months, but break it down to going, okay, in the next 90 days, this is what I want to achieve, because that's the thing that's going to really help you do it. What you have to understand is there's a great saying, amateurs rely on motivation, professionals rely on process. And there are 2 parts to this. So the first part is our habits are the thing that moves us forward. Our habits are the day-to-day actions that move us to do the things that ultimately help us achieve our goals, and then ultimately help us achieve and move us towards our definition of success. Processes are the things that help us within business. They're the things that help us streamline stuff, get the workflows working properly, communications, relationships, those sort of things, within the business or within our career. And we probably need to look at both depending on what your goals are. But there's a key strategy that I look at when I'm working with people, and it's called HITs. And HITs can be used either as if you want to go, let's pick 3, but let's pick 4 goals, you could use it as your goals. So HIT stands for health, income, tribe, and self. So what are our health goals? What are our income goals? What are our self-development goals? And what are our relationship goals, our tribe? You could use that, but maybe you don't have that within that for the big goals. But what you should definitely do is use it as your habit development. So your habit development is, what is your health habit today? It might be do 10,000 steps. It might be go for a walk in the morning. What is your income goals? Well, it's to generate a certain amount of sales, or it's to make so many phone calls to do that. What could be a self goal? It might be to read a book. I worked with a client yesterday, he says he's not reading enough. So it's to sit down for 45 minutes and to read X amount of books a year. The tribe is the key relationships, whether we're talking about personal or whether we're talking about business. Do you need to get your arse off the chair and get to more networking meetings because people buy off people? Or do you need to reach out to your friends who you haven't spoken to in a while? Look at these things and aim to do one of each section every single day. Do a health goal, a health habit, an income habit, a self habit, and a relationship or tribe habit every single day. You will be amazed at the results if you consistently do that every single day. The key thing, though, is to keep them in line with your goals and ultimately your definition of success. Everything should flow very simply in and up the same line. Now, you have a choice when you're doing this. The choice is you can go and carry on doing the same thing you've always done. There is a possibility that you're not happy with the results. If you're not happy with the results, if you're sitting there going, I need to do something different this year, I need to improve in X, Y, and Z, do a plan. Please get a plan done. Don't make excuses. If you're not achieving the results you want because you haven't got off your arse and you haven't written a plan, the only person to blame is you. If there are things that you are doing that you're not getting the results, then perhaps you need to look at the relationships that are around you. Are they helping you, moving you forward, or holding you back? They need to be changed. It's not easy. I'm not going to even pretend it's easy, but they are the things that need to be done in order to change the results. There is a great book I read called Turning Pro by a guy called Steve Pressfield. And it talks about two different mindsets, the professional mindset and the amateur mindset. Now, I don't know about you watching this, but I don't want to be an amateur in anything. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it to the best of my ability. I want to be a professional at what I do it. Now, if you are thinking about that in your plan or in the things that you are doing, what would you do differently if you took a professional mindset attitude towards achieving it? Because at the minute, the reality could be that you're being more amateurish at it than not. Now, there's some of it that we probably could stand and self-reflect and go, yeah, I'm being a bit lazy on these things, or I have not a clue on how to do this, even though I want to achieve it. A professional would go and look for the resources. He would go and look to see how to do it. So my challenge to you is to get out there and have a look and see what you can do. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had found this really interesting. Again, ask as many questions as you want. If any of you want to reach out to me and ask me questions, book a call, please go to workwithgeoff.com. That's Geoff spelt correctly, Geoff. I am here to help. I'm here to serve. Have an amazing day, and I wish you the greatest success. Take care.